I'd like to talk about hypoglycemia, seeing as how 1 in 20 people suffering from type 1 diabetes will develop hypoglycemia at some stage. So what can NutriKane do to assist hypoglycemia, Mal?
So NutriKane D is a diet control mechanism or product, and the way that it works is by increasing the effectiveness of your intestinal health, and a knock-on effect of that is managing blood glucose levels. So what that means is that your body is more able to use the insulin that it has. It's called insulin sensitivity, and it reduces the highs, and it does appear to also increase the lows as well. So what that means is that people stay into the sort of ideal range a little bit more often, and the preliminary data that we have says that it reduces hypoglycemic events quite significantly.
Now, Kirsty, you've got personal experience of this, and would you like to tell us about it?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Yeah, I am a type 1 diabetic, and I took the product, and Malcolm's absolutely correct. It did moderate my blood sugars, so my highs weren't as high, my lows weren't as low, and I was spending much more significant amounts of time in an optimal blood sugar range. And I also noticed that it did impact on hypoglycemic awareness for me. I had very well controlled blood sugars, and so that wasn't an issue for me. But I did notice that I was detecting hypos at much higher blood sugar levels, and that meant I could interact faster, and I didn't have any negative side effects from having slightly lower blood sugars. And it also meant that with the increased sensitivity to the insulin, I was able to, in consultation with my doctors, reduce the amount of insulin that I was taking, which also doubles down on assisting with managing your blood sugars. If you're not taking as much insulin, you won't get as much variability in your blood sugars.
It's very interesting you say that it increased your awareness, because hypoglycemic unawareness is very frightening for a lot of people.
Yep, and I can say that I was even detecting them when I was sitting down and not moving, so there was an increase in the sensitivity, which was fantastic.
Excellent, thank you. And Rod, what marketing arrangements or business plans do you have to assist people that are in this situation?
We're happy to sell them NutriKane D, but the big takeout for me is that those people today, we market the product for people living with type 2 diabetes primarily, because as you mentioned, there is a risk of people having a hypoglycemic event overnight and they don't survive. That's very common, happens pretty much every day, mainly to younger people too. They're not as experienced with managing their blood sugars. And one of the great things we see with the product is with the customers that we've got that are indeed injecting, and most of them with type 1 diabetes, they're more confident in being able to control their blood sugar, as indeed occurred with Kirsty. So the highs and lows are not as high or not as low. So they've got more control and therefore more confidence, and they can lower the average because they're not trying to worry about the problem of a very low overnight. And most of them, our customers, have also reduced the amount of insulin they've required to use injecting by 30 or more percent. So it's a very significant opportunity for us as a business, but also for us to do something useful for the planet.
Excellent. Malcolm, has this made a difference to HbA1c levels?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had a couple of very long-term case studies now. So they're still just individuals, but they were tightly controlled on the way through. So not anecdotal information. And in that case, we found that people have reduced their insulin, as Rod mentioned, by around 30% on average. And at the same time, their HbA1cs have gone down at the same time. So this was done as part of their regime management in consultation with their dietitian and their doctor, as any change to diabetes management should be. And what they had just found was they just didn't need it as much because they were in the optimal range. And one of the interesting things that came out about it, this was mainly with type 2s, because it's more of a problem with people with type 2 diabetes, was that they were finding that they could exercise more and were feeling more comfortable about exercising because they weren't worried about just crashing and having problems afterwards. So they found that they were getting more confidence, and as a side effect of that was that they were losing weight more effectively.
Liz, I'd probably add that I know I was diagnosed when I was quite young, so there were a lot of parents that are very, very worried about kids with type 1 diabetes, both whether they have a hypo at night time, and a lot of parents can test through the night because they're so worried, and then they're also worried about things like letting them do anything different that upsets the routine they've established, like going on school camps or going on trips away. So if they take NutriKane D and they're able to moderate the blood sugars, it will actually be very positive for the children, that they're able to achieve a lot more in their life.